In this video, we'll learn how to use the healing and spot healing brushes to repair some of the remaining elements of pen markings on the old photo. So let's go ahead and zoom into this area right here on the old photo where we still see some remnants of that blue pen marking where those names were written. If you recall, towards the beginning of this course, we used the channel mixer to remove all that blue from the pen markings, and that's really going to make it a lot easier for us to heal these areas using some healing tools. So really quickly, before we begin, look over in the Layers panel. I've created a new group in between videos, which I've titled Repairs. So it's in this group, we're going to have some different layers where we repair and heal, rather, some different parts of this image. And we're going to be working on this markings layer that I've also added in between videos. So go ahead and come over to your toolbar, and we're going to start off using the Healing Brush tool. The keyboard shortcut for this tool is J. So we'll just start off by using this, and I'll explain how it works. I'm just going to hold down Alt and sample from a nearby area where we have these faint remnants of the markings. We'll hold down Alt and click to sample that area and then begin painting. Now notice how nothing's happening. Okay? If you find this happening, come up to your options bar, see where it says sample. You want to change that from current layer to all layers. Okay, and this is going to allow us to sample basically from everything we have here, from all of the layers in this project. So now go ahead and hold down Alt and click again, and then start painting over some of those markings, and you can see how it's starting to repair those areas. Basically, the way that this works is the pixels that we're sampling from are going to match the texture, the lighting, the transparency, and the shading, okay, onto the areas that we're healing. So the areas that we're sampling from, they're going to match all that onto these areas that I'm painting over where we have the pen marking. And so from time to time, you'll want to resample, because we are going across some different areas here where we just have some changes in the overall darks and the lights. Now notice when I sample and I paint, see the distance that that little sample marker is right there, the little cross point. If I were to jump over here and paint, you can see that marker still over in that general area. So you have this other option up here, which is called aligned. If you click on that and check it, and let's say I sample again from right here and I'm painting here, make note of the distance, okay? And then if I jump over here, let's say, and I'm painting, you can see how that marker will always remain consistent. It will always keep the same distance between the cursor and that little sample marker. Okay, so you might find that handy depending on the part of the image that you're working on. All right. Now let's also talk about the spot healing brush. So basically, you're going to get the same results where you're able to again, the sampled pixels, the pixels that you're sampling from, it's taking that and it's going to match the texture, the lighting, transparency, and shading onto the area that you're painting. But how it samples with the spot healing brush is different. So basically, you paint a selection over the area you want to heal, and it's sampling based off that selection from around it. So from the surrounding area around that selection. Okay. Now notice that nothing happened. So we need to go back up to the option bar, click on Sample All Layers. And so if you try that again, it's sampling from the surrounding areas around that selection, and again matching the texture, lighting, transparency, and shading. So really handy tool. And so just kind of moving along here, painting over some of these different areas to remove these remnants of the pen marking. Now really quickly, we have some options up here. By default, it's going to be set to content aware. And so what this does is comparing the nearby image content, and it's basically going to try and seamlessly fill in whatever selection that you're painting, okay? And it's going to try to maintain really those key details, such as shadows and so forth, as we've mentioned. And then we have create texture. You might click on that and kind of see the result that it gives you. And you can kind of see here faintly what it's doing. And basically what create texture does is using those pixels in the selection to create a texture, okay? And then we also have proximity match, and this is where it is again going to use the surrounding pixels around the edge of the selection to try and basically generate some sort of patch. So sometimes you might not get the results that you want with something like this. Again, it's sampling from an area where we also have a lot of different things, different visual elements, different changes in your darks and your lights. So it looks like it picked up this little area right there. So that's not something that we want. So just taking actually just a couple of steps back, and I'm just going to stick with content aware. It works really great with this tool. And I found with the spot healing brush, I try not to paint too huge of an area. Try to do it kind of bit by bit. Now, where you will probably run into some issues is when you come up to any edges. Again, where you have some dramatic changes in your darks and your lights. So right in here, kind of trying to paint this area where we kind of come up to an edge where it's darker. It might get a little bit muddy, especially right in here. If I try to heal this, it's just not going to give me the results that I want. So in this case, you could try the healing brush tool again, where you're basically having to sample manually. I might want to reduce the size of my brush. So you could right click. This brings up a little dialog where you can basically reduce the size. You can also reduce the hardness, if you will. You have the same dialog for both of these tools, basically. Okay, so we could sample from right here. It's a similar area, and we could try to paint right there. But again, sometimes you might not get the result that you want. It might just still be a little bit muddy. And so honestly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually take a few steps back, and I'm going to reserve this area over here for using a different type of healing tool. And I'll actually go ahead and take one step forward there. Just a couple steps forward in just kind of healing. Kind of took a few steps back too far. But basically, I want to save this area for the following video where we're going to use another type of healing tool that will give us more of the results that we want. So as we kind of wrap up this video, we'll come over here. This is where we had another name that was written on the image. We can try the spot healing brush once again. And again, just be careful about coming up to edges. You're going to see how it kind of pulled from that edge right there. So that's something to avoid. But we'll see how we can address those issues later on. Again, coming up on the top edge of his apron right there, it could get potentially a little bit muddy, just like that. So it's good to kind of demonstrate that, just kind of show you what can happen. Okay. But kind of seeing if I can get some of these areas right here on his shirt as well. All right, so in the following video, we're going to continue removing some of these remaining elements of markings using another type of healing tool. And then beyond that, we're going to just start healing a lot of the just random little spots and little scratches that we see just on the overall image. So stay tuned for those videos.